Hi, thank you for listening to Reverse Investment Channel. I'm Chi Yao. Greedy companies are moving jobs overseas. Greedy companies are keeping their profits overseas. Greedy companies are destroying the life of the middle class and paying as little as possible. You hear about this all the time. Politicians promise to punish the greedy corporates. However, it is the opposite they will do. Punish the naive people. Yes, companies are greedy, but that's not the reason why our companies are leaving. Contrary to everyone's belief, wages for productive workers probably are the smallest portion of all expenditures. The only reason the productive companies are leaving is because our policymakers encourage speculations and punish wealth productions. With manipulations and interventions from governments and central banks, excessive costs are forced upon productive people. The effects are long-lasting, and once the process goes down the next stage, it will be harder to reverse the course. The first stage: excessive costs are placed onto productive companies. Governments and central banks provide artificially low interest rates and special tax treaties to speculators who have no intention to use assets in wealth-producing ways. And the result of inflated asset prices increases incentives to exit and barriers to entry. At the same time, big corporates lobby politicians for powers. Policymakers then create very toxic legal and regulatory environment to minimize competitions for the greater benefits to speculators. With expansions of government agencies, hassles from governments increase. Rising operating costs and risks start to outweigh profits for wealth-producing companies. As a result, productive companies are choked to death and forced to leave the supply chains. The second stage: interrupted supply chain causes productive companies incapable to compete. When more companies leave a supply chain, the remaining companies must be compromised by either through importing or exporting at a higher cost. Sooner or later, the remaining supply chain can't compete. Productive business owners now face moving to overseas to compete or shutting down. This is a big decision to make, because the decision will affect the consequences for the next 20 years. Especially the speculation allows the huge delusional profits for property sales. Exiting seems to provide the best outcome. As legal and regulatory environments get too toxic, there will be no new industry replacement other than the speculation. As excessive costs reach the level one key element of a supply chain is missing, the end for the entire supply chain will not be far away. The third stage: the broken supply chains annihilate the entire production, making new business impossible to form. If the entire supply chain has been destroyed, it is not one or two companies that we need to produce wealth. It is all companies along the entire supply chain that we need. With the same toxic environment, new entrepreneurs aren't going to survive. All supply chain has gone, and new one isn't coming. A society still needs to produce wealth to prosper, making speculators fed on the remaining productive people. How can the remaining productive people not to be struggling? We have to bring every single element of a supply chain back in order to rebuild the sustainable supply chain. Business decision is not made for overnight, but for decades. So imagine how much wealth is and will be destroyed. To wrap it up, never destroy a habitat. It doesn't take much to destroy a habitat, but it requires tremendous amount of efforts to bring it back. We can have the toxic environment and make our country great at the same time. Governments always promise that, but that's a lie. It's against government's interests to let us have the free market and some money, but that's the only way we can prosper. Thank you for listening to Reverse Investment Channel. This is Chi Yao, signing out for now.